Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. When you reflect back on your lesson, how do you think it went?
I think the lesson went well. Cause and effect. Prior to the lesson, I asked Dominique if it was something that she was familiar with. She said she was familiar with it. They did complete it in school. So I think it made teaching the lesson a little easier because she already had background knowledge of that.
If I remember correctly, the focus for the instruction was on basically your ability to not provide too much information and give her processing time.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that.
So it went good. I used the suggestions of the stop sign, the writing the questions prior to the lesson. So what I did was I went through the book and wrote questions down and left it at that. So I asked her the question and then I didn't provide any more information. So it was a little hard because I'm used to just kind of rattling off things. But it went well. She was able to answer the questions. Stop sign helped me because there's a visual so that I could see this and cut it off after that. So I think it worked well. The suggestions really helped.
Okay, good. And I did see yourself catching yourself before you actually...
Because it just comes natural.
Yes, so it was so good it worked out. I think keeping yourself busy with your own graphic organizer also not only provided a model for Dominique, and you could do an analysis with that information as you were comparing your answers, you know, analyzing the two together, what did you see with. I think that helps foster this idea of collaboration and learning, and I also think it kept you busy.
Yeah, it did. It kept me busy, so therefore I wouldn't be providing her with any other information. So.
Okay, and what else do you recall about your own behavior during this process? I saw, you know, like that one time where you had started to talk and then I think you looked down and you saw your stop sign.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was hard catching myself, but again, I had the questions down before, so I knew exactly what I was saying, so it definitely helped me guide myself. As far as what to say, what not to say. So, and then I just tried to build, when she answered the question, I kind of tried to build more on top of it after she provided an answer, instead of building on top of it prior to her answer. So, I think that really worked out well.
I think also using the graphic organizer and having the cause effect also gives you those opportunities where maybe you want to talk about what was just written instead of you know, processing it and processing information while she's doing it, which in the past has kind of colored her own response. So those were all good formulas to apply, especially to this lesson. How do you see it, the same strategy, your teaching strategy, applied to other lessons?
I think it's definitely something that needs to be done, and I can even apply it more than just reading. It can be applied various subject areas, science, social studies, anything where I have to ask questions, limit myself. Write down the questions ahead of time, which I know the reading series we use has the questions in the margin, so that kind of helps guide me with that. Whereas this is a little different because I don't have the manual to go through. I come up with the questions prior to the lesson or elaborate on her ideas, which kind of gets me caught off guard because I don't have a limit of what to say. So it's definitely something that I would use in the future as far as controlling what I'm saying as the lesson's going through.
Yeah, and in Dominique's case, she seems very bright and she was able to work effectively on the assignment without much guidance from you. So I think that is so beneficial. When you give a kid an instruction, you modeled it, which was superior. She was able to feed off of that and kind of apply the task and how to go about it in the piece. But just thinking in the classroom, and you have 20 students and maybe 5 of them that need a lot of assistance, I think it becomes a challenge in not giving them the answers, especially when you want to finish the task and move on. So how do you think you would handle it in a classroom?
Well, this is, and that's I think why I had a hard time with this, because I'm used to third grade students that need a lot of guidance, that need a lot of support, need a lot of help. Where with Dominique, she's going into 7th grade. She can read silently on her own. She can pretty much figure out a lot of the stuff. She's not so needy as in asks questions every step of the way, which is what I'm used to, which is I think why I ask question on top of question, because they provide a lot of assistance. So I think it'll help me in the classroom because the students will be more responsible to think on their own rather than me providing them the information as to where to start thinking. So I think it'll be helpful for that, and especially too, I mean, this was nice because it was such a small setting, but in the classroom you have 23, 24 students. You have to provide them with the time to think of their responses. So I think that'll be helpful in that aspect of the lesson as far as time management also. Giving them the time to elaborate and giving them the time to think rather than quickly giving them a response that could change what they were thinking or what they wanted to share.
Okay, good. How do you think what you planned compared to the outcome?
I think it pretty much went with each other. I had planned for to stop throughout and ask questions, which is what I did. Made the connection. One of the things she connected about was with the hurricane. She said Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Irene, which was her prediction and information she shared prior to reading the book. So that worked out well. I didn't, thinking back on it now, make sense as to why she said it, but that, when I was thinking about her making a prediction, that didn't even come up. Or sharing information, making a connection, that just didn't even come to mind. As far as the cause and effect goes, I think she did well with the graphic organizer.
Yeah, I saw very little assistance.
Yeah, she did really well with that. The only thing I noticed is sometimes she would catch herself determining whether it was a cause or whether it was effect. So she had to then go back, and that's where I had to kind of just keep it zipped.
Yeah,
to let her think for herself, is this an effect? If this is an effect, what's the cause? Or if this is the cause, what's the effect? So I kind of really had to work on my own graphic organizer and kind of just let her go off, and then we went over them together.
I also thought your questions were really good, and they were just out there open-ended. You didn't tell her any information. She had to really use her brain to figure that out.
Which was hard for me, but I just kind of, like I said, knew the game plan.
Written down beforehand.
It helped. It does. Yeah, it did help me a lot. Just because I'm one of those visual, I need to see it, say it, and kind of let her go with it. So.
I also noticed during the observation that she had a stronger, a quicker response in the beginning, and then towards the end, she was, really thinking about it. Writing was a little bit slower. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think one of the reasons is because as she was going through the story in the beginning, the information wasn't as detailed, I think, and then once the book went on and there was more facts given and there was more details as to what was happening, I think it was maybe a little bit harder for her to process. And I noticed that too when she was determining what was a cause and what was effect. You could almost hear her thinking out loud, or she would ask me questions to go with that. So I kind of knew what she was thinking as far as why she was confused. But again, she did fine. I think she was only confused. I think there was one of them that she was confused because it listed a couple different effects and she didn't know what to, like, did she include all of them? Did she include one of them? She didn't know how to go about putting that in the information in the organizer.
But at least she was able to draw from the cause with the multiple effects, which is better than just searching and searching and not being able to locate them or recognize them. So that's good. I'm just wondering, like, if she, like the guidelines that you would give her to put down enough information and be confident in the answer without going on and on and on. Because you ever see those kids that want to just put down everything that they know, and they kind of beat around the bush instead of just hitting it head on?
Right, and I didn't really even provide her guidance with that because I kind of wanted to see how she went, because this was the first one we did with cause and effect. So I wanted to see, was she going to provide minimal information or was she going to expand and do all the information? So I noticed since she did use the book as a reference, she did want to include a lot more information. So I told her as we were going through, she could pick, when she identifies the cause, identify an effect that she thinks would apply most to whatever the cause was. But she did, that was one of the things too she had said was, as far as the effects, there was a couple different ones. She didn't know if she should include all of them. The box was only so big on the graphic organizer. She didn't think she was going to have enough room. So that was another area which I should have addressed, looking back on it now. Should have addressed with her to include the part that you think is the most important, or maybe one or two effects if it happens to be more than one.
But you know what, we don't always know until the lesson is unfolding, but the fact that you use the most applicable to apply it, I think is actually the kind of language that you would see on the state standardized tests. And I know that they use that type of language also on the SATs. That's not until further down the road for her, but I like your choice of words. And I mean, looking ahead, that's something that you could kind of think about in the future.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's pretty much it, unless you have any questions.
No, I think the, like I said, the strategies that you provided were very helpful. It allowed not only myself to stay on task, but for her the opportunity to answer with her own thoughts rather than me chiming in with what she could use as a thought or what she could use as a response. So I think it was very helpful.
Oh, good. Well, we worked on it collaboratively. I mean, I know that, like I gave you some feedback, but it was really you that but I just right, and you helped me with the strategies because I didn't know how to go about doing that. So like, what do I need? What could I do to help? And something as simple as putting a stop sign, which you had mentioned I never even thought of, was a visual that helped me. Yeah.
So that worked out really well.
Okay, so really good cooperative problem solution
yes.
here. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You bet.